Hello everyone. Okay, I hope we're all well and happy. I did say yesterday, I sent out to you all a copy of my answer I wrote about the participation crisis from using that source. And I did say I'd make a video to kind of explain how I did it. So I do hope you've all had a look, or you will have a look in the near future, at my answer to it. I did do it in time conditions when one of the classes was doing it. It took me about 42, 43 minutes, something like that. So just a few key things to get from it. So firstly, on that source, there are a number of points you could have got from that source. So it mentioned in the source about party membership being in decline. It also mentioned something about party membership not being such a big problem. So there's your point and your counterpoint. It mentions something about trade unions being more active, but it also mentions about it mentioned about trade unions kind of again not being in decline, but it also discussed about pressure groups being quite active in many different ways. So again, there's your point and your counterpoint about pressure groups. It also mentioned in the text about, I think it was in source one, about turnout not always being great, and it did mention some social groups of people not voting as well. And then of course in source two you had all those statistics. And of course, statistics you can use in any way, can't you? You can make them fit arguments for and against, depending on which ones you use. So there's quite a lot of stuff there for doing that. I found it was quite hard to make up source questions for you all, because I tried to do it without putting too much information in. It is quite hard to do. So, with that in mind, I decided that my 3 paragraphs, I'd have one about turnout in elections, one about pressure group activity, and one about party membership. They're the 3 I decided to go on. So if you have a look at my answer, okay, there's my handwritten, that's proof I handwrote it originally. Okay, you can see for the introduction, I had a sentence to say what was meant by the participation crisis. I then said, whilst it is true to say that turnout in some elections has been quite low, it's also true to argue that people are participating in different ways in the UK system. So I just kind of hinted there what some of my points might be. But then the crucial thing I've done is I've then said what my argument is. Overall, it is clear that the UK does not suffer from a participation crisis. You could easily get full marks for arguing the other way around. You just do these points the other way around, basically. Right, so if you look at the structure of my paragraph, so I've started out the main argument, comma, as made by the source, uncomma, to suggest the UK does not suffer from a participation crisis is the turnout in UK elections. So I've done what we did with that cats and dogs. Now that first sentence, the main argument, then I've used the question as the basis of my point, and I've directly linked it to my argument. So the person reading this knows that this paragraph is going to be about turnout, and I've directly referenced the source as well. So for the person marking it, they know I've linked it to the source. I've then put source 2 has highlighted the high turnout in some elections. Okay, so I've mentioned Scotland and I mentioned Brexit, so I mentioned 2 elections. I've also mentioned the higher turnout in some recent general elections as well, for good measure. So I've got 2 or 3 examples there of turnout being okay. I've then, for AO2, this is what a lot of people didn't do, I've then said, why is it a good thing that people vote? Why is it not a crisis if people vote? Alternatively, if I'd done it as it being a crisis first, I would have then put here, why is people not voting a crisis? So I put, turnout in elections is often seen as the most important political act and form of participation given as it gives governments and electoral processes legitimacy. So the most important part of democracy, because it makes sure those who are elected have got legitimacy. They've got the backing of the people. Like if 4 people voted, they wouldn't really be legitimate, would they? But if lots of people have voted, they are. Okay, and then crucially, for AO3 is a sentence that starts with therefore. This suggests a mini conclusion. Therefore, the source is correct to highlight that the turnout in elections in the UK does not suffer from a crisis. Okay, then comes my counter argument. So it's going to be about turnout. So I've said, turnout is great, people vote, yada yada yada. My counterpoint is going to be, what about 2001? What about that referendum of 40-odd%? I could mention the Crime and Police Commission, which is also on source 2 as well. However, An argument, a weakness of this view is also highlighted by the source by the low turnout in some elections. I've then given some examples of that. I've then said why it's a problem. Such low turnouts may suggest a crisis as people are no longer taking part in the democratic process. This means that legitimacy is being affected and people are disillusioned. I've then done a therefore mini conclusion to this argument. Notice how this argument, okay, it's a bit shorter than this one, but not massively, because it goes a little bit on to the next side as well. It's not like one sentence compared to 10 or something on this side, which some people did. It's a similar type of length. It's got the same things in it as well. It's got a why is that point being made? It's got an example or two in there, and it's got a therefore in there as well. Okay. So it's got my therefore, and then what I've done is said why I reject that view. So I said, whilst this view has some merit, it is fundamentally flawed as turnout is generally good in the UK. And I basically, all I've said is that, yeah, 2001 was a problem, but that was 20 years ago, get over it. The AV referendum was a bit of a problem as well. That was one referendum out of how many? Get a life. That's basically what I said in my counter argument. I phrased it a bit better than that. Okay, I'm not going to go through the other ones in much detail, you can read them yourself, but they're all the same structure. You know, further out to suggest there's a crisis is due to party membership. I've put some figures in there. I said why it's important that people are members of parties. I've then put however people are leaving the Conservatives and blah, 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 why that's an issue. And then I said why I reject that view, mine's better. I've done the same for pressure groups as well. And then the other crucial thing is for your conclusion. What you must do in the conclusion is, yes, you must state your argument, but you've got to say why you reject the other point of view. Why is the other point of view so bad? You have to demolish their point of view, basically. So I put here, although overall it's clear the UK does not have a crisis. That's my argument that's run all the way through. Whilst it is true to argue, whilst the source, is correct to highlight that some elections have had a low turnout, that some pressure groups are not doing very well, like some trade unions, and why political party membership isn't great. So I've highlighted the other arguments. I'm now going to say, but this is a rubbish argument because, yeah, it's one or two elections, get a life. It shows that people have joined the Labour Party. It shows that if the political parties are seen as being relevant to people, people will join. Therefore, there's not a crisis because if people feel like they want to join a party, they will do. That's basically how I've done it. Okay, so that is the structure. Now, I appreciate some of you might not write as fast as me. Okay, I would rather you did 2 paragraphs of this type of quality than 3 rubbish ones. You get more marks for 2. If you're quite quick at writing, which some of you are, then you should always aim for 3, ideally, with that conclusion and with the introduction. But if you're a bit of a slower writer, okay, I'd rather you did 2 good paragraphs like these on here, and if you've got if you've done your conclusion, you got like 5 minutes to spare still, then do sneak in a, even if it's a bit of a rubbishy third paragraph, you're not going to lose any marks for doing a rubbishy third paragraph. You might gain a few marks if you've done a bit of knowledge or something like that. Okay, you should use every minute you've got in the exam on each question that you have. So for this one, you should have every minute of 45 minutes should be spent writing this answer, or reading the source first, obviously, and then writing your answer. Okay, I hope that's been helpful, that's been useful. Do look at my answer, do compare it to your answer. Feel free on your answer, if you want to highlight AO1 knowledge that you've used, AO2 where you said why, and AO3 where you've done therefores, when you can see what you're doing or not doing, feel free. And in fact, actually, on your next essay, I might make you do that before you hand it in as a little experiment for you all. Okay, any problems with essays and stuff, then obviously feel free to contact me and I will do my very best to help you. Okay, I want to get back now to see what's happening in Michigan in the USA. So I will see you all in the near future.